Well, welcome everyone to the Business Spotlight series. I'm Linda Cry, firm owner with Action Coach XL Edge. And today we are going to hear from Mike Barstow and a bit about his organization and about his leadership and being a business owner. So first of all, thank you, Mike, for taking some time to be with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's start a bit. Tell us about yourself and maybe how you got into business and how long you've been into business and what your business is.
Yeah, so I've got kind of maybe it's a unique story for some, but I think one familiar for a lot of small business and things like that is my start was we're a family business. A business my parents started 35 years ago. They bought a single screen movie theater actually in a small town in Nebraska. My dad was in the Air Force at the time and was looking kind of for what his next thing was going to be right after getting out of the Air Force and what they were going to do. At the time, I was not born yet. I've got two older siblings, so we had two kids. Him and my mom were kind of looking, like I said, what they wanted to do, and found a single screen movie theater that was for sale, and thought maybe there was an opportunity or something they could work out and do that. So they bought that theater. They tell the story better than I do, but borrowed the down payment across 3 different credit cards and got that business kind of off the ground. And just over the years, kind of buying and selling and new opportunities and things like that came up. And I had I think the luxury and the opportunity to grow up in that environment, right? When I was very young, was working in the movie theaters and tearing tickets and doing anything I could when I was a kid. That was, easy jobs for me to do. And then as I got older and the company matured and we started getting some bigger and bigger projects, being able to take more of a impactful role in the business, from either helping manage them or things like that through high school. And then at some point I went off to school in Michigan, got my degree in economics, bounced around in the corporate world for a couple of years, had a couple of good opportunities, tried to learn as much as I could. And then, at this point, it was probably maybe 7 years ago, I kind of returned to the family business in a full-time capacity and was like, this is what I want to do. And, kind of kicked off what I guess would see like this current stretch of employment there, working there. And, I think collectively as a company or as a family organization, we're very entrepreneurial in spirit. So we got our start in movie theaters. But kind of since I joined the company, I call it the company, but we kind of branch off and do all these different things. We've got, 4 restaurants. I think we're up to 6 movie theaters, kind of a small fit club as well. But we're hyper entrepreneurial in nature. And a lot of these are, it all just started with an idea, or, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a pizza place? Our whole family's from Detroit. Let's do Detroit style pizza and see if we can figure something out. And that was kind of born. I'm wearing it here as our through and through Detroit style pizza, but Backlot Tap House is one of my businesses that is, just a restaurant, Detroit style pizza, tap house, bunch of local beer and things like that. That's really fun. But yeah, that's kind of the short version of who I am and who we are kind of as an organization.
Beautiful. So it's in your blood, it's in your DNA, that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, something's in there. We all joke it might be a defect that we've all got this screw loop that we think we can do all these things that are way harder and things we have no business jumping right into, but it is there.
Well, and it can be hard, and sometimes, well, when things aren't easy, it's still the right thing to do and the right reason. Find a need, fill a need type of thing. So let's just chat about that a little bit. How did you discover what your role is? So for today, it sounds like you've got your hands in a lot of different things. How would you describe your role today? What do you bring to this organization?
Yeah, so I'm vice president of the company as a whole, and like I said, that stretches across all of our different locations and business units. But as far as my role, I think it is a lot of that family business mentality, right? I think we all wear many hats, and over the holidays, I'm in there scooping popcorn behind a concession stand or making pizzas at one of the restaurants and waiting tables or behind the bar. But then the next week, might be meeting with bankers or landlords or working on our next project or, whatever that might be, right? I think my more comfort zone, which was some of my background in school and with my previous experiences before returning to the family business, was a lot on that finance side, new business development. So, most of my time is probably spent on there, but like I said, plenty of opportunities where get pulled back into kind of baseline operations, which I love. That's how we all got started in this world, right? I think that's what's really fun, is being in the locations with either our guests or the staff and, it's always been kind of our second family is being in any one of those businesses, and that's ultimately a very comfortable space to be. And then the other stuff is just the kind of the stuff we have to do, I guess, to run our business.
Sure. Sure. It is that nurturing mentality of something
Mhm.
that you are creating and building and certainly owning. I like to think about it as you're working in the business and you're working on the business.
Yeah, no, I really like that.
Yeah, and so I get that you've got those couple different hats here. Tell me a little bit about your growth strategies, right? So is it a massive marketing machine? Is it the customer service experience? What is it that you believe attracts people to your establishments?
Yeah, so we've got something we talk about quite a bit, and we're not a giant public company or things like that, so we don't have the resources like a lot of those, especially when you look in the movie theater space. There's kind of some massive players, and then we kind of, we're in the independent level there, a little bit smaller. And our whole kind of marketing thing is if I can just get you in the door once, then that's my market. My marketing is the experience, right? If I can get you in the door once, then I know I can get you back a second time, and maybe I can get you to bring some friends with you. And I think that's always been our mentality. Our company's got kind of 5 core values, and one of them is, we like to do hard stuff, right? It's hard what we do, and we got to pour ourselves into it, and we've got to embrace that hardship, right? Lean right into it, and that's why we do it, because it's more rewarding. Another one is good humans, and that's all we want to do is work with good humans. We want our guests to be good, whatever it is, right? We don't have time. I don't think there's enough hours in the day to waste time on somebody who might be working against what we're trying to build or culture we're trying to create. So it's always leaning into good humans. Another one is TLC, trust, loyalty, and commitment. I think that's one that we ask moves, up and down and inside and out of our organization, right? That every employee from the top to the bottom all knows that the next one is trusting of them, that they're committed to the mission we're trying to build, and is committed to those goals, right? And I think even outside the organization with partners we work with. Then we've got moment in time. And this is where I think it kind of comes back to your original question, is that moment in time of when a customer comes in to one of our businesses and chooses to spend their money with us in whatever way that might be, whether it's at a pizza restaurant or going to a movie or at an arcade or bowling, whatever it might be, any time of day, that moment in time has to be perfect for them, right? Doesn't matter if it's Monday at 8:30 p.m. and the doors close in a half an hour, and maybe we want to get out of there and get home. To that person, that's when they had the free time and the ability to come in and spend their hard-earned dollars. So that moment in time is really, really important to us. And then kind of our 5th core value is figure it out. And that's just kind of, I think, problem solving. And when you talk about what is our growth strategy, I think our growth strategy is a little bit figure it out. We don't know what it is yet, right? It's ultimately our guests and customers tell us what they want and what we're good at. And I think as long as we can listen to that, we can kind of figure out how to take that and turn it into something better, something bigger. So, kind of running through those core values, our growth strategy is leaning into every one of those 5. And I think ultimately the results just kind of come naturally if we're doing our part on sticking to those 5 core values.
Beautiful, beautiful. So my guess is that you hire toward those core values as your building team.
We do, and I think it's usually a very open discussion with our leadership team of we do an interview with somebody and we go through all 5, right? Is this person, do we have the feeling that they like to do hard stuff, right? Do they seem like somebody who can figure it out? Are they a good human, right? We ask ourselves those questions for every single person up and down our organization and annual reviews or things like that. Because I think if that's our North Star, right? That's everything comes back to there. That's our guiding principles, those 5 core values. We need that to be felt for sure from the human side, but then also every single decision we make and anything within our 4 walls and outside of it has to align with those core values.
Beautiful. Is that something that 35 years ago your parents started and then you've evolved? Is that a recent thing since you've been involved in the business? When did you embrace those 5 principles as guiding principles in your North Star?
Yeah, no, so I think, the actual development of putting them on paper and putting names to them, right, and developing the ideas, that is a relatively recent development, something we did coming out of COVID, because, like our industry in movie theaters and restaurants, we were some of the most heavily impacted businesses during that period of time. And, what we were left with was kind of a mismatch of what we had for business and how to put everything back together, right? And I think we knew we needed to have that unified goal message as we kind of almost had an opportunity. It sounds crazy, but when all that shut down and we had to rebuild it, we had an opportunity to basically rebuild our foundation because we were almost starting from scratch again. Yes, we had the history and all these experience and things to pull on and some existing relationships, but we really did have the opportunity to kind of all sit together and go, okay, what kind of company do we want to be now coming out of this, right? It provided a really interesting opportunity there. So all that came together. I think it probably would have been 2022 when we developed those. So like I said, not that long ago, but the way we developed them was we got everyone around the table, everyone from the family and our leadership team, people who've been with us through, for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever it was. And we all sat down and got on a whiteboard and said, let's list off all the characteristics that we like about the people in this room, right? Like what is something that unifies all of us, right? And it's, hey, well, we all like to do hard work. That's why we're all here. That's why we're in this industry, right? So that gets written up on the whiteboard. So we filled up the whole whiteboard and then again, kind of went through and discussed each one and said, what truly personifies us in the business? So I guess as far as like formulating the ideas and developing them, that's a relatively recent thing, but it was just because we didn't have them written on a sheet of paper. Those have always been our core values for 36 years. We just didn't know it. We finally took the time to self-reflect and realize, hey, this really is what we want to stand behind. And I think what that did for us is we grew. We've got about 300 employees now across all of our business units. Was we were always good at living up to core values because it was a smaller group and it was a family and you didn't have to put words to them, right? It was just like, oh, that's how we are. That's what we do, right? And as you grow to get that, you talk about the culture a little bit, to push all the way down to that 17-year-old kid who might be working the point of sale station at a theater or bussing tables at one of the restaurants. How do they know what we want to live to and personify? That's where it became very important. I think we've seen kind of that growth of just that unified message. I think that there's no confusion out from the bottom of the organization to the top of what exactly it is we're pushing.
Love it. I can hear that. I would describe it as you're being very intentional. You're being very intentional on how you're growing and how you're putting your structure in place so others can aspire to it and be inspired by it. Love it.
No, I appreciate hearing that. It's also funny. We use the word intentional a lot with our food and beverage programming or even like a bar offering, right? It's everything we do has to be done with intention, right? There's purpose to what we're doing. We just did our newest restaurant up in Milwaukee. It's called Buchanan's, which is our family is Scottish. Clan Buchanan is kind of our historical nature there. And we were building that business and an opportunity came for us to put in a restaurant. We didn't have a concept for it, right? We already had a Backlot Pizza and Kitchen. The concept we've had for a few years was just across the way. So we couldn't do that same concept. And we all got down and said, we want to do something here. The opportunity is there, but we can't just throw something. Customers are too savvy. The environment is too competitive. It's got to be something purposeful and something we believe in and that is done with intention, right? So it was pulling on our family story of, well, here's our story to tell. Our history of movie theaters, I think we're ultimately storytellers and just love that entertainment. So everything we do has to have that element. And it was like, okay, well, what if we told the story of our family from Scotland, the UK, and all of our heritage over there about coming over to the Midwest? And we, what was born was this Buchanan's business, right? And it's a UK pub, but the menu is a little more Midwest inspired. Not just because the UK food is not always the most flavorful, things like that. We joked about we had to inject some Midwest appeal in there and get some higher quality items, but it's just that, right? It was done on purpose and with reason. That's why we did that. We couldn't just throw something together and say, yeah, people will figure it out, right? Because ultimately they won't.
Beautiful. Love it. I'm curious, and today, how many hours do you think you work on the business when you think about not the operations so much, but all the support and structure that it takes to run this really complex yet simplified, right? Business entity?
I think that's a tough question. I think like anyone in this world, the short answer is it never stops, right? I think it's like almost every minute, every second, especially now in today's of, with my cell phone and just being so accessible and be able to be connected so often. maybe to a fault at times. I think we're always working on the business. We joke is, it's really hard to go to another restaurant or go out for just a normal night and separate, because I'm sitting there at the table and all I'm doing is watching how every single person in the building is moving around. What are they doing? What are their systems? Breaking down their menu, which to some people or friends, that's exhausting. And they have to maybe tell me at times like, hey, yeah, no, that's all good. We're just trying to have dinner. Like, oh, okay, we'll just focus on that. But I think it is that you're always working on it, right? Because I think if you don't, that's where it slips up. And you never know when those moments or ideas, or you are just out thinking, maybe you're just having dinner, but you see another business do something and you go, wait a minute, that seems to work really, really well. And I think there's maybe a thread I can pull on there and apply to our own situation, even if it's a wildly different business, right? Even if you're just in retail shop, whatever it might be, you might have those moments. So I think we're kind of always working on the business. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking, but I think it's nonstop. I think it's 24/7, and maybe I'm more on the extreme end there, growing up in the family business. And even when I was like 12 years old, we're sitting around the dinner table and that's what the entire family is discussing, because it's who we are through and through. It is our DNA, and it is my, you know, who I am is ultimately what I do. And I think that goes the same for at least everyone in my family, and for most of the people within our organization. So it's a constant,
Yeah,
constantly on the business.
yeah, it's a way of being for you. It's a way of being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and maybe a different question. What does work-life integration look like for you then? With family's very important. It's a part of your story. You celebrate it, right? You live into it. What does work-life integration look like?
Yeah, I think it's messy at times. I think just naturally the two of those converging, right? They're always thought of in the same thing, right? Like any given day, I'm calling back and forth my parents, sisters, people who've been with the company for 20 years who were, I remember when I was 4 or 5 years old, trying to help them out in a theater they were managing, and now we're 25 years later, having discussions about the future of our company, right? That's a weird, interesting dynamic that we deal with. But I think it ultimately is that integration is, you got to try and find time to compartmentalize things too. And I think it's really helpful from at least from like mental health and all that sort of stuff too, of to find those moments to remove yourself a little bit. And I think in those moments is where you kind of allow for inspiration or, um, whatever it might be, right? Like if you're constantly in it, it's hard to take a step back and maybe see it from a different angle, right? So I think it's that integration is, you're in it a lot, and then I think you try and carve out those moments when you get the chance to compartmentalize all that, push it aside, and maybe take a step back and, like I said, allow maybe your brain or just even yourself to wander and see maybe where that inspiration might come from, and who knows, maybe the two might align at some point.
Love it. Love it. I'm curious, what's in front of you? What are you trying to figure out? What is maybe a business problem or solution that's in front of you today?
Yeah, I think coming out of COVID, we had an opportunity to, it opened up a bunch of projects to us actually, in a bizarre thing as well, right? We had to rebuild who we were. And with that, I think allowed us to kind of look and go, okay, we want to maybe be a little bit more, and maybe we want to diversify what we are doing and lean more into maybe some restaurants or adding in these other elements. So we're so reliant on one thing, right? So I think our current one is, we just opened up these new projects up in Milwaukee. We have a movie theater, bowling, family entertainment center, and two restaurants. We just got those opened. We've got another project in Cincinnati that is, or just outside of Cincinnati in Blue Ash, Ohio, that's supposed to open, um, in a few months, somewhere in there, as that's all coming together. And then another project here where I'm at in Chicago, a cocktail bar in kind of the West Loop neighborhood that should be in the next few months as well. And I think our biggest challenge right now is, we've scaled up and have all these opportunities and are getting them open and going there. But then it's one of those of like, when the dust settles, do our existing systems that were built to manage and operate maybe a smaller footprint or fewer businesses, how do we then, from a human capital standpoint, right? What positions are we missing? Who do we need to add? How do we I think we're really good of like bootstrapping getting a business open, right? Like it's just it's who we are as a family. Like we can get in there, we can get it open. But then once they're all opened, then it's that challenge of, okay, we all can't be everywhere all at once, and we're now in what will be 5 states, and you have to rely on a lot more people, right? And I think that's kind of our biggest challenge right now, which is a fun challenge because I think it also is, it's a very collaborative one. It allows us to pull a lot of really good location managers or people that have been in our businesses for a long time and maybe present an opportunity for career growth of, hey, you've been doing so well here with your systems. What do you think we could maybe, if we pulled you out of there, could you have that same impact on multiple units and things like that, right? So I think it's rebuilding kind of that org chart and how we're going to manage all these businesses once they're opened. Not necessarily right now as they're fighting to get open, because we've got that kind of covered.
Got it. So optimizing and maximizing and putting systems in to leverage your growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the really big one too is, I think from a human perspective too, is we transition. Well, one book I've read quite a few times is like the tipping point, right? And we've hit a point as a family business where there's a lot of stuff we used to be able to get away with, and get away with in that we could always just put ourselves in the position and get it back on track, right? It was a smaller thing, right? And as we're getting that tipping point to where I mentioned almost 300 employees, and that's before these other locations get open, that number's growing. That point when we tip from a kind of startup family business into a real company where a lot of people are relying on it, and we've got to scale up at that same time, right? And it's from positions or organization, things like that. But those are the really big challenges. And then making sure that our culture and our family story and the core values that we seek to live out, how do we get that into 500 employees, right? It's always been easy if there's 6 of us sitting around the table to know where everyone stands on it. But what about that employee that's 700 miles away, that's only working 2 shifts a week? How do I get them to live out to those same ideals as I do? Maybe not as well, but at least a baseline understanding so that they know where we're coming from and what it is we're trying to build. I think that's a really big challenge that I think we have, and I think just all businesses, right? How do that founder or whatever it is, that mentality that somebody starts with, a sense of ownership that no employee will ever truly understand or have that outside of that original person. But how do you take, a piece of that and let everyone in the organization feel it and feel like they're a part of that? Because they are.
That is the inspiration. It really is. And that's the challenge, right? So the art and science of it.
Yeah.
And investing in your people, the people strategy. I personally believe it's about people and process.
Yep.
And really business doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And yet the complexity is because there's people and process.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, investing in those strategies will always pay dividends for sure.
We joke about it all the time. Ultimately, what we do is pretty simple. We scoop popcorn, we sell pizzas, but it's the human element that makes it so challenging and I think rewarding at the same time. That's the giant thing we got to figure out, is how do we get all these humans moving in the right direction and committed to the same mission? Because that's ultimately even experiential. If a guest comes in, yes, I'll stand by. I think our food is great, our drinks are great, good. The experience if you're going to the theater, all that stuff is baseline. Like we all believe in that and know it's good. But then how do you elevate above that? And it all comes down to experiential, having the right people in the right seats that can make that experience just a little bit better for somebody, where they go, you know what, I do want to come back here. I don't know what it is, but I'm more comfortable here. I like this a little bit more. There's an extra touch that I might not get somewhere else.
Yeah. It's a place to do life with, right? That's part of it.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, this is exciting. Very thrilled for you and the growth and hearing your enterprise and all the different business units and the family dynamic and living into that legacy and honoring that spirit. There's so much wisdom here, Michael. Thank you for spending some time with us and sharing that with us. And for those who are watching, I'm sure that there is a nugget of insight that you have picked up. And how might someone find you or reach you if they would like to reach out?
Yeah, so our company is ACX Cinemas, is the movie theaters. We've got a website there that has, everything if you want to learn more about our company. But then me personally, my name is Mike Barstow. I'm on LinkedIn. And if, anybody wants ask a question or anything like that, that's kind of the easiest place to find me.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much today. Appreciate it, Mike.
Yep. Thank you, Linda.